Quiet tech worker family ignores my birthday, so I secretly canceled their Netflix, utilities, and mortgage. They discover I was their provider. All along, my name is Mark. I'm 31 years old. If you asked anyone in my family to describe me, they'd probably say I'm the quiet one, or worse, the one who never really figured out his life. I've always kept things simple, never asking for much. I wasn't the favorite child. That was clearly my older brother Thomas, who followed Dad into finance, or my younger sister Laura, who lives as a social media star with a picture-perfect online presence. I took a different route. I built a steady job in tech, mostly working from home, earning an average income and never showing off. I preferred to stay under the radar. What I didn't realize was that my family didn't just ignore me, they actually saw me as a joke. It started, as usual, with a message from Mom in the family group chat. Dinner for Mark's birthday this Friday. Any ideas? That didn't bother me. I even felt a small hope. Maybe this time things would be different. Maybe they'd remember I don't eat meat, or recall the new restaurant I mentioned downtown. But then the replies came. Thomas wrote, "Let's not pick anything fancy. Save the good restaurants for real wins." Laura added, "Lol, facts, buffet." Mom just hit the thumbs up on both. No one asked what I wanted. No one checked if I had plans. They picked the place and I followed along. Friday arrived. I showed up at a dull buffet, dim lighting, sticky tables, and a sneeze guard older than most of the staff. Everyone was already halfway through their meals. No party decorations, no cake. Just a board saying, "Hey, birthday boy," from Uncle Andrew, as he munched on cold mac and cheese. I smiled, nodded, sat down, and tried to ignore it. I'd grown used to being invisible. Then came the card. Just a plain white envelope with no writing outside. Inside was a basic printed birthday wish. Below it, in messy blue ink, someone had written, "Maybe next year you'll actually do something worth a party." I stared at it, wondering if it was meant as a joke. But then Thomas laughed. Laura took a sip and said, "Just a bit of a push." Mom smiled like it was clever. It wasn't a joke. That's truly how they saw me, as someone who never measured up. I stayed quiet, smiled faintly, pulled out my phone, and took a photo of the card on the table, with the cheap buffet food and my relatives laughing mid-bite in the background. Then I stood, placed the card back down, and said, "Thanks for dinner." No sarcasm, no anger, just calm. I left before anyone could respond. The silence afterward was the clearest moment of the evening. No one followed me or messaged. I sat in my car, staring at the photo on my phone, not moving. I kept looking at it for a long time. Something inside me changed that night. I wasn't really upset. I was done. Done being quiet. Done being blamed when things got tense. For the past 3 years, I'd been quietly building something none of them knew about. Contract work, signed deals, and a private project that was slowly growing. I hadn't told them because I didn't need their approval, but now I knew I didn't want their company either. 3 days later, the family chat exploded. Laura messaged first. "Anyone else locked out of Netflix?" Thomas asked about HBO and Spotify. Mom said she couldn't access the family photo folder. Finally, Dad, who rarely messaged, wrote, "The internet stopped working. Mark, can you check the account?" I didn't reply, at least not yet. I wanted them to sit with the silence. They didn't realize that since 2020, all streaming accounts, online storage, and utility bills had been under my name. When Dad lost his job, I quietly stepped in to support the family until things improved. I never mentioned it. I never sought praise. But I kept records. And now I was tired of being invisible, only noticed when something stopped working. What truly unsettled them wasn't the missing Netflix or unpaid electricity. It was the message I sent that evening. One simple text, one photo. The same photo I took at the buffet. No words, just the image. That was enough. Thomas was the first to reply. "Seriously, grow up, Mark." Mom wrote. "Are you really this upset over a birthday card?" Laura added. "It was just a joke. You're overreacting." I said nothing. I logged out, blocked the group chat, muted their numbers, and moved on. But the silence didn't last. What they hadn't yet realized, the thing that would hit hardest, was that I hadn't just canceled their subscriptions and bills. By Wednesday morning, my phone buzzed nonstop, with over 30 missed calls. I didn't answer, but I listened to a few voicemails. Each sounded more urgent. "Mark, sweetie, call me back. Your father's trying to reach the bank and nothing's working." "Hey man, no argument here, but we're locked out of the tax folder. Where'd it go?" "Mark, this is serious. The mortgage payment was rejected. Dad says your name is still on the account. What's going on?" That last message made me pause. They finally realized what they had depended on without thinking for the past 3 years. When everything fell apart, when Dad lost his job, Laura had to pause grad school, Thomas lost a lot of money on a failed crypto idea. I stepped in silently. At that time, I secured a big freelance deal with a startup that eventually succeeded. I never bragged or asked for anything. I just helped. I rerouted bills through my accounts. I took over house payments to keep the family home. I never wanted anything back. That was the point. Thomas's expression shifted from confusion to anger. "So, you're really going to cut us off over a birthday card?" I looked him in the eye and said, "No, I'm finally making you all face how you've taken me for granted. For 3 years. That card was just the receipt." He stared for a moment, maybe about to respond, then dropped his six-pack on the floor and left. I didn't touch it. That night, I sat quietly on my couch and finally felt peace. Not because I got revenge or made them panic, but because I chose myself. I owed them nothing anymore. No explanations, no money, no silent acceptance. But this was only the start. The next morning, I saw a new voicemail from Dad. He rarely called me directly. He was more the group text and silent nod type. His voice was calm but controlled, clearly, holding back anger. "Mark, your mom's upset, your sister's crying, you've made your point. Now be a man and fix this. You don't walk away from family just because it's hard." I listened twice. That phrase, "be a man and fix this," echoed like an alarm. It wasn't a request or a negotiation. It was a command, the kind I grew up with, disguised as concern, but really control. Dad never shouted or hit, but he always made sure you knew who held the power, even if he wasn't the one paying. What would be ironic if it weren't so sad was that he still believed I owed him. After all I'd done, paying the mortgage for 3 years, settling Mom's hospital bills when insurance ran out, covering Laura's credit card mistakes. I had proof of it all. I had been the one holding the family together. And they only noticed when I walked away. Later that day, Mom messaged me on Facebook, a platform she only used for cat videos or church flyers. I knew this message was serious. Her tone was cold and firm, like she was trying to regain control. "We're having a hard time. I don't know what you're trying to do, but you can still fix this. Your father says we could refinance the house if your name is still on the papers. If we miss another payment, we could lose it. Please think about your family. That house, the one I grew up in, renovated with money they didn't really have, while I lived alone in a small apartment right after college. The house I kept afloat when Dad was too proud to admit we were struggling. That house never felt like mine, even though I was the one paying for it. And now, they wanted me to come and fix it again." I didn't reply. Instead, I started gathering paperwork, not to rescue them, but to protect myself. I had never officially handed over control of the utilities, the streaming accounts, or even the loan I co-signed when Laura attempted to start her bakery. All of it remained under my name. If they failed to pay, it would affect me directly. That was the hardest part, not their guilt trips or demands, but realizing how quietly and completely they had tied their lives to mine without consulting me. So, I began making calls. I canceled the co-signer agreement, contacted the power company to remove my name from the account, secured my credit report, and locked every account that wasn't solely mine. I wasn't just stepping away, I was closing the door behind me. It took 2 full days, and when I finished, I received one final message that hit me hard. It was from Grandma. She was the only family member who ever made me feel like I mattered, simply for being myself. She used to sneak me sweets when I got grounded, never missed a birthday, even if it was just a handmade card with a doodle and "I love you always" written inside. But this message was different. I heard what happened. I just wish they saw you the way I do. I don't blame you, Mark, but I do miss you. Don't let their poor choices harden your heart. You're a good man. Remember that. I sat with those words for a long time. The next day, I drove to her house with her favorite cinnamon rolls and tulips. We sat quietly on the porch before she spoke. "They're not good enough for you," she said softly, sipping her tea. "But they'll come back begging. Pride always gives in when things get desperate." She was right. The day after I cut off the emergency credit line they'd secretly been using, there was a knock at my door. It wasn't Thomas, it was Laura. She looked different, no makeup, puffy eyes, hoodie and leggings, holding a plastic grocery bag like an offering. "I brought something to eat," she said, voice rough. "I just want to talk." I hesitated, my hand resting on the door, looking at her like a stranger. Because in many ways she was. But something in her expression, whether real or acted, made me step aside. She entered, set the bag on the counter, and looked around as if surprised I'd let her in. "Mark, we messed up," she said quietly. I stayed silent, watching her. She looked down. "I'm not going to pretend we didn't say awful things." I laughed softly, thinking of the card. "I said things I shouldn't have. I've been selfish. I didn't understand how much you were doing for us. I didn't want to understand. It was easier to think you were the quiet one with nothing going on." She lifted her head, tears in her eyes. "You were the one holding everything up, and now it's all falling apart." The room grew still. She was right. It was breaking down. I felt the moment approaching when she would ask me to fix everything. Again. But I wasn't the same person who sat quietly at that buffet a week ago. I stared at her for a long moment. She squirmed, biting her lip as if bracing for a blow that never came. "I'm not here to beg," she said quickly. "I just hoped if you understood where we're coming from, you'd reconsider." I shook my head. "I don't deserve to be celebrated unless I succeed the way you expect. That I'm only remembered when there's a bill due or the Wi-Fi isn't working." She looked uncomfortable. "I know it was wrong, but we really thought you were okay with it. You never complained. You just helped like it didn't bother you." I sat down, calm, but with years of bottled-up feelings rising to the surface. "Want to hear something strange?" I asked. I used to believe it didn't matter. I thought staying quiet and doing what I was supposed to was easier. Let Thomas win awards. Let you shine for others. Let Mom and Dad act like I had no drive. I didn't care about being noticed. But then I realized the problem wasn't that I didn't matter. It was that all of you agreed I didn't, and that felt normal to you. She lowered her head. "I guess we assumed you liked being in the background, that you were just different." "No," I replied. "I was put there. Whenever I did something important, it was ignored or called luck. Any small win was buried under Thomas's next job offer or your vacation stories. I was the support beam. While you built your lives on top of me, none of you looked down to see who was carrying the weight." I got up and picked up the takeout bag she brought. Thai food from the place I'd mentioned casually over a year ago. This was the first time anyone in the family remembered something specific about me. "I'm thankful for this," I said, placing the bag back down. "But a meal doesn't fix all the times I was made to feel invisible." "I know," she said quickly. "It can't fix everything. It's just a start." I sighed and ran my hand through my hair. "Do you remember when I helped you start your bakery?" Her eyes shifted. "Yeah." "Do you have any idea how many loan payments I had to pause just to give you that $27,000? She swallowed hard. "No." "Of course you didn't. No. One ever asked." She looked at me with guilt, maybe real understanding for the first time. "You want me to come back?" I said quietly, almost as if speaking to the whole family. "Return to being the backup you all leaned on, even though none of you cared how I was doing or treated me like I had my own priorities, problems, or dreams. You want the old version of me, the one who said yes even when you laughed behind my back." She shook her head quickly. "I swear I don't. I want the real you now, the one finally speaking up." For a moment, I wanted to believe her. But it wasn't enough anymore. "I'm not coming back," I said softly. Her eyes widened. "Mark, I'm done catching you when you fall. I've shut down every account we shared, removed myself from your finances. You'll have to handle your payments and rebuild your money on your own. I'm not doing it anymore." She seemed about to reply but didn't. "I don't hate you," I added. "This isn't about revenge, but I won't keep letting you take advantage of me. I deserve better than guilt-driven loyalty and sympathy. I deserve to be valued." "I do value you," she said softly, stepping back. "Then show it by letting me go." Tears filled her eyes, but she nodded slowly. "Do you think you'll ever come back?" she asked. I shook my head. "Only if I'm welcomed as someone you genuinely care about, not just someone you rely on." She stood, hands trembling, picked up the food bag, and held it out. "Keep it," she said. "Even if you never want to see us again, just please eat." I accepted. That was the one thing I agreed to take. When she left, I locked the door behind her. For the first time in a long time, a weight lifted. The silence in my apartment no longer felt lonely. It felt peaceful. The following weeks passed with almost total quiet. No group texts, no urgent calls, no pressure pulling me in different directions. I used the time to build something new, my own path. I signed a remote work deal with a Swedish tech company, cleared my last postponed debts, and planned a solo trip to Granada, something I'd wanted to do since college. It took time for them to realize I wasn't bluffing. Thomas sent one final message: "You've made your point, but don't forget who helped you get here." I didn't reply. I saved the message as a screenshot and put it in a folder I now called Noise. Mom mailed me a birthday card the next year. No jokes, just a simple handwritten message. "I'm sorry. I miss you. Love, Mom." I didn't respond, not out of anger, but because I had learned something important. You can let go of the pain without letting people back in to hurt you. Again. 6 months later, I received a letter from Grandma. Inside was a small photo of the two of us on her porch, tulips in her lap and a cinnamon roll in her hand. On the back, her shaky handwriting read, "They're learning slowly, but you don't have to give up your peace for them. Keep moving forward. I'm proud of you." That one I framed. Now I live in a bright apartment in Portland, working with a smart, kind team. I walk to a nearby lake each morning with my thoughts. I've picked up painting again. I don't announce my success or post humble brags. I don't need their eyes on me to feel like I exist.